guess what? Living the high life ain't all it's cracked up to be. Yeah, me, the queen of Glendale's gilded cage, married to the king of the stock market. Our mansion? A stage for the perfect life. Every smile for the cameras a well-rehearsed lie. My days? A whirlwind of diamonds, designer dresses, and parties where the champagne never stopped flowing. But let me tell you, those sparkles? They don't warm a cold bed. The first crack in the facade? Realizing the echo in our mansion matched the hollow in my heart. My husband, Mr. Big Shot, always jet-setting, closing deals in Tokyo, networking in New York. Me? I was just another trophy on his shelf, only taken down for special occasions. Nights spent in silk sheets, alone. The silence so loud it was deafening. Then, bam! At this artsy gallery downtown, I met him. Not my usual scene, but there I was, sipping wine that tasted more like freedom than grapes. He was the opposite of everything I knew. Wild hair, tattoos, a smirk that said he knew life's secrets. His paintings? Alive with colors that spoke to my soul. One conversation, and I was hooked. He saw me, not the facade. Our affair? It was wildfire, dangerous and all-consuming. The guilt? Ate at me like acid. I couldn't juggle the lies, the love, the longing for something real. So, I did the unthinkable. I decided to come clean to my husband. Naive, right? I thought we could deal with it like adults. I imagined tears, yelling, maybe even understanding. But I believed we'd find a way through it, together or apart, but with some dignity intact. The night before he left for another one of his globe-trotting trips, I left him the letter. My confession, my plea for understanding, or at least a conversation. But what did I get? Silence. Cold, devastating silence. He left, not a word, not a glance. His response? A letter left on the marble countertop, his elegant handwriting spelling out my worst fears. I wish you happiness in your new path, it read. A legal document attached, cutting me off, pushing me out, divorcing me from his life and bank accounts. Shock, understatement of the century. I felt like I'd been thrown into the deep end. No lifeline, no warning. My perfect world? Shattered in one fell swoop. The mansion felt like a mausoleum, each room a tomb for my failed dreams. In desperation, I turned to my artist, my lover, my supposed escape. But when I needed him most, his eyes, once so full of fire, turned icy with fear. I can't give you the life you're used to, he stammered, his passion now replaced with practicality. I'm not him. I can't be him. And just like that, the fantasy faded, leaving me stranded in a reality I wasn't prepared to face. So there I was, stripped of my title, my security, my love, standing in the wreckage of my life. The queen of nothing, ruler of ruins. And let me tell you, hitting rock bottom? It's not just a saying. It's a bone-crushing, soul-sapping reality check. But guess what? The story doesn't end here. No, this is just the beginning. Because when you've got nothing left to lose, that's when you're truly dangerous. And me? I was ready to fight back. Who knew the courtroom could feel colder than the loneliest parts of my mansion? There I was, sitting across from the man I once promised to spend my life with, watching his team of sharks in suits tear my life apart piece by piece. Insufficient evidence for such a substantial claim. One of them sneered, talking about my alimony like it was pocket change. Every attempt I made to secure what I thought was rightfully mine got smacked down harder than the gavel of the judge. Then, the whispers started. You'd think high society had better things to gossip about, but nope, my downfall was the season's hottest topic. Invitations dried up faster than tears on my pillow. Friends I've known for years suddenly acted like I was a ghost as they passed by. My social standing? Obliterated. Just like that, I was on the outside looking in, nose pressed against the glass of a world I was no longer welcome in. Desperation does funny things to you. It makes the unthinkable suddenly very thinkable. I knew things, dirty little secrets about my husband's business deals that could make or break him. So, I did what I had to do. I reached out, tried to use those secrets as leverage. Think of the implications. I warned him over the phone, voice steady, heart racing. But all I got was silence, then a click. Betrayed by my own naivety, again. And as if that wasn't a low enough blow, my lover, my supposed partner in crime, turned tail. It's getting too risky, he whispered one night, his silhouette disappearing into the darkness, leaving me clutching at shadows. Just like that, abandoned, with no knight in shining armor coming to save me from the dragon. It was just me, alone, facing the beast with no sword, no shield, nothing. But life, oh, it has a funny way of throwing you a bone when you least expect it. Out of the shadows stepped a figure. Someone from my husband's past so shrouded in mystery, I wasn't sure if he was a guardian angel or another devil come to collect. I can help you, he said, voice gravely with the weight of secrets, but I need something in return. A vendetta against my husband, a mutual enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? Or so I hoped. With nothing left to lose, I dove headfirst into the murky waters of corporate espionage. This mysterious ally, he knew things, showed me the ropes, taught me how to lurk in the shadows, listen to whispers, and look for the signs. I was in over my head, learning to navigate a world so foreign. It might as well have been another planet. But desperation breeds determination. I was going to bring my husband down, even if it meant playing dirty. The evidence gathering was like something out of a spy movie. Late-night stakeouts, covert meetings, cryptic messages. Every piece of damning evidence I secured felt like a victory, a step closer to reclaiming my life. But with every move I made, danger lurked closer. Unknown assailants, shadowy figures in the night, threats left on burner phones. It was a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, and I was determined not to be the prey. Through it all, I learned something important. I didn't need a knight in shining armor. I had myself, and damn, I was stronger than I'd ever thought possible. Every threat dodged, every piece of evidence secured. It all built me up, piece by broken piece. I was down, but not out. Beaten, but not broken. I was ready to fight back, and heaven help anyone who stood in my way. Just when you think you've got the upper hand, life slaps you in the face with a betrayal so cold. It makes the Arctic look like a tropical paradise. There I was, all set to take down the empire of lies my husband built, with what I thought was a trump card up my sleeve. That card? A mysterious ally from his past, ready to spill the beans. Or so I thought. Turns out, he was the joker in the deck, playing me all along. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there, whispers that didn't add up, meetings shrouded in too much shadow. But desperation blinds you. When he sat me down, that smug look on his face, and said, "It's been fun, but I've got a better offer." My world didn't just crumble, it imploded. He was on my husband's payroll, a double agent in a game I didn't even know we were playing. My grand plan? It was just a cleanup operation for them, using me to tie up loose ends. Feeling like a fool, I scrambled to salvage what I could, but it was too late. My moves, my contacts, every step I'd taken was now an open book for my enemies. They came for me, not with lawsuits or threats, but with cold, hard steel and the intent to silence me permanently. Dodging an assassination attempt sounds thrilling in stories, but living it, it's a nightmare. A dark alley, a glint of metal, a struggle for life. It felt like a scene from a movie, except the fear was real, the danger, imminent. I barely escaped, my heart pounding a frantic SOS, cornered and with nowhere left to turn. I did the only thing I could. I went straight to the lion's den. My husband, the architect of my demise, sat in his office, a fortress of glass and steel. I had nothing but the truth, a sliver of evidence I managed to keep from our treacherous ally. Confronting him was like talking to a marble statue, cold and unyielding. "You've lost, and you know it," he said, not even a hint of emotion. It was clear, he was untouchable, wrapped in layers of power and influence that made my evidence seem like child's play. But I wasn't going down without a fight. In a last, desperate move, I tried to go public, to shout the truth from the rooftops and let the world see the monster behind the mask. It was foolish, really. His security was on me in seconds, a well-oiled machine of suppression. My evidence? Confiscated. My voice? Silenced. It was over before it even began. The fallout was nuclear. Legal battles raged, but without my evidence, I was a ship taking on water fast. The court's gavel was the final nail in my coffin, sentencing me to a future behind bars, stripped of everything I once held dear. Assets? Gone. Freedom? A memory. And then, the letter came. Not a declaration of victory, but a silent farewell from the man I once loved. I wish you peace, it read. A cold closure to our twisted tale. Sitting in my cell, the weight of my choices crashing down on me, I had nothing but time. Time to reflect on the whirlwind that was my life. Every decision, every misstep, played on loop in my mind. The isolation was suffocating, a solitary confinement of the soul. I realized in the depth of my miscalculations, the irreversible impact of my actions. My quest for vengeance, for truth, had cost me everything. There's something about hitting rock bottom that clears your vision. Maybe it's the lack of distractions, or perhaps it's the sharp, cold slap of reality. Either way, as I stood at the narrow window of my cell, the iron bars casting long shadows across the floor, I couldn't help but reflect on the twisted journey that led me here. My life, once a whirlwind of luxury and deceit, had been reduced to a cautionary tale, a story of ambition, betrayal, and the high cost of revenge over reconciliation. Outside these walls, my downfall had taken on a life of its own. Whispers in the wind, stories shared in hushed tones over clinking glasses. My name, once synonymous with grace and power, had become a byword for folly. I imagined the chatter, the speculation, painting me as a tragic heroine or a foolish woman, depending on who you asked. It was strange, thinking of my legacy being shaped without me, my actions reduced to moral lessons in the mouths of strangers. Meanwhile, my husband, the silent architect of my demise, continued his life untouched. His business, a juggernaut of success, plowed through scandal after scandal with Teflon resilience. His personal life, though, remained a mystery, a carefully curated image that revealed nothing, a testament to his mastery of the art of silence. The contrast between our fates couldn't be starker, and yet, there was a part of me that wondered if he truly felt victorious, or if his silence was a fortress hiding his own ruins. In a final, enigmatic twist, I heard from one of the few friends I had left on the outside that he was seen visiting an unknown grave. The image haunted me, the stoic businessman standing before a headstone, a solitary figure in the midst of his empire. It was a reminder that our story was far from simple, threaded with loss and secrets that went deeper than anyone outside could understand. It left me with questions that burned brighter than my anger, hinting at layers of our saga yet to be uncovered. But life inside prison waits for no one, and dwelling on the past or the unknowable offered little solace. I had to rebuild, to forge a new existence from the ashes of my old life. The first few weeks were a blur of adjustment, a daily battle against despair and bitterness. Yet, amidst the monotony and the harsh realities of my new environment, I found a strength I possessed. I began to form connections, tentative at first, then with more confidence. Other women, each with their own stories of downfall, became my allies, my friends. I shared my knowledge, the bits and pieces of the world outside that I carried with me, and in return, they shared their survival strategies, their hopes, and their laughter. Together, we formed a network, a makeshift family forged by circumstance rather than blood. It was a strange sort of empowerment, finding agency and camaraderie in a place designed to strip you of both. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, I realized that my life hadn't ended. It had simply changed course. The woman who once navigated social galas with ease now maneuvered the intricacies of prison politics. The skills that once served to entertain and charm were now tools for survival and support. It was a humbling transformation, but not an entirely unwelcome one. Just when I thought my story was etched in stone, along came a twist straight out of a legal thriller. Picture this. Me, in my not-so-glam prison blues, sitting across from a young lawyer who looked like he'd just stepped out of a courtroom drama. Sharp suit, sharper gaze. "I've been following your case," he said, his voice brimming with a mix of outrage and excitement. "Your sentence. It's a miscarriage of justice." His words were a lifeline thrown into the murky waters of my despair. Our quest for an appeal kicked off like a rocket. This wasn't just about combing through legal documents. It was about dismantling the narrative that had been carefully constructed to paint me as the villain. Every meeting, every conversation, we dug deeper, uncovering flaws and biases in the trial that had been glossed over. "Look at this," he'd say, pointing to discrepancies in the evidence. "It's clear you were set up." Then came the game changer: new evidence. Not just any evidence, but the kind that sends shockwaves through the foundations of a case. We found traces of manipulation in the shadows, fingerprints that suggested my actions had been steered by someone else, someone with a vested interest in my downfall. My husband's name hovered over us, unspoken but omnipresent. As we peeled back the layers, a startling revelation came to light. The mysterious ally, my so-called partner in crime turned betrayer, hadn't acted alone. He was a pawn, coerced into playing his role by my husband. "It's all connected," my lawyer mused, his eyes alight with the thrill of the hunt. "Your husband orchestrated this whole charade." But facts and evidence weren't enough. We needed the court of public opinion on our side. So, I stuck into the spotlight once more, not as a socialite, but as a woman fighting for her truth. Interviews, press releases, any platform that would have me, I used them all to share my story. The narrative began to shift, slowly at first, then gaining momentum. People started to see me not as the perpetrator, but as the victim of a much larger game. Public sentiment began to sway in our favor. Letters of support, social media campaigns, even protests calling for my release. It was overwhelming. This tide of solidarity from strangers who now saw the injustice of my situation. And then, the breakthrough we'd been hoping for. Delving into my husband's business dealings, we uncovered a legal activity so brazen. It was a wonder they'd stayed hidden for so long. This could change everything, my lawyer whispered, hardly daring to believe our luck. The evidence was irrefutable, linking my husband to crimes far beyond what anyone had suspected. Each revelation, each piece of uncovered truth, was a step toward my freedom. The appeal process was no longer just a legal battle. It had become a crusade against the corruption and manipulation that had led to my imprisonment. With the public outcry growing louder and the evidence mounting against my husband, the scales of justice began to tip. For the first time since this nightmare began, hope wasn't just a flicker, it was a blazing fire. Just like that, with the bang of a judge's gavel and a flurry of papers, I was out. Freedom tasted different than I remembered, bittersweet, tinged with the residue of battles fought and lost. Stepping out of the confines that had defined my existence for what felt like an eternity, I was met with a world that had unapologetically moved on without me. The skyline hadn't changed, but everything else had. The air felt different. The people around me strangers in a life I used to command with ease. Starting over wasn't just daunting. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff with no safety net. My reputation was in tatters, my assets gone, my connections severed. But the real weight was the haunting past, the whispers that followed me like shadows. Every glance seemed loaded, every interaction a reminder of the fall from grace I'd endured. "There goes the woman woe euro," they'd murmur, their voices trailing off as I passed by. But I was done being a victim, done letting my past define me. It was time for a new chapter, a new identity. Drawing from the depths of my experiences, I began to lay the foundation for a consultancy firm dedicated to fighting legal injustices. My past, once a millstone, became my most valuable asset. I had lived through the system's failures, navigated its complexities, and come out the other side with a story that could inspire change. This wasn't about revenge, it was about transformation. My focus shifted from settling scores to empowering those ensnared in legal battles with nowhere to turn. My consultancy quickly became a beacon for the wronged and forgotten, a place where their voices could be amplified and their cases fought with the tenacity of someone who had walked a mile in their shoes. As I rebuilt my life, piece by painstaking piece, the empire my husband had so meticulously constructed began to show cracks. The legal and financial fallout from the exposure of his illegal activities was a slow poison, eating away at the foundations of his once untouchable status. Watching from afar, I felt no joy in his downfall. Vengeance had lost its allure. My battles now were fought in courtrooms for those who had suffered as I had. You'd think I'd be better at this by now, the lying. My heart pounded against my ribs as if trying to escape, threatening to give me away. Sweat prickled my brow, a sure sign. I never sweat. But Alex? He didn't notice a thing. Late night at the office again? Pun? His voice echoed in the cavernous kitchen, a casual accusation masked with concern. I could smell it on me, that damned sandalwood cologne, the one he wears. My stomach twisted. I forced my features into a light-hearted grin. You know how it gets, I chirped. The chirpiness feeling as fake as a plastic Christmas tree. Client dinners, deadlines, all the usual excuses tumbled from my traitorous mouth, lies slick and practiced. Alex, bless his sweet, oblivious heart, just nodded. My husband, the gentle giant. Kind eyes, that steady smile. God, I felt like a monster. But I couldn't stop, not now. The lies were the easy part. It was the sneaking, the seedy hotel rooms in the bad part of town, the feeling of hot, unfamiliar hands on me. That was the stuff I craved. And it terrified me. Who was I becoming? Earth to Sarah? Alex waved a hand in front of my face, snapping me out of my guilty reverie. Hey, you still with me? Sorry, I mumbled. Just tired. The warmth in his eyes made me want to crawl under a rock and hide. He didn't deserve this. But neither did I deserve, whatever this was. Not a life of whispered rendezvous and half-truths. Not this burning need for something I knew I shouldn't want. Something that would shatter Alex into a million pieces. A shadow fell across the kitchen, and my stomach clenched again. Alex wasn't the only one who'd picked up on my distraction. It was Max, our lanky, perpetually messy teenager. Mom, Max's brow creased, his two knowing eyes mirroring his father's. You sure you're okay? You seem, like, super spacey. See, I wasn't just imagining things. I'd never been a great actress, apparently. I forced a tighter smile, a brittle mask to hide the swirling mess within. Teenagers, I quipped, attempting to deflect. You drain all the brain cells out of me. Max rolled his eyes, but I saw the flicker of relief. I'd bought myself a little more time, but with every passing minute, the walls seemed to close in. I needed to escape, just for tonight. I could handle the guilt, the shame, anything, if I got another taste of him. That addictive, illicit rush I was powerless to resist, no matter the cost. I just have to be a bit more careful from now on, a little less obvious, and a whole lot better at lying. The lies came easier now, smoother. I played my dual roles like a seasoned actress. To Alex, the dutiful wife, baking pies and asking about his day with eyes that promised safe harbor. Meanwhile, my other self, bolder and untamed, craved only his touch, his laughter echoing in the dingy, neon-lit rooms that became our haven. My phone wasn't just a device, it was a lifeline. A portal to coded messages filled with longing, racy photos, and the hushed whisper of shared secrets. My reflection in the mirror mocked me. Tired eyes ringed with lies, but a wicked thrill sparking in their depths. Who was I becoming? The burden of it all gnawed at me. Every shared meal with Alex, every kind word, every smile he gave me, it felt like acid against my soul. And yet, it didn't stop me. I was addicted to the double life, the danger, the passionate storm that was him. Nights at home turned into exercises in self-imprisonment. Alex would share the minutiae of his work with that trusting smile, the same one I'd fallen in love with years ago. Now, it felt like a noose around my neck. The familiar hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock on the wall. They taunted me, a soundtrack to my betrayal. Each stolen night with another man made returning home feel like wading through quicksand, dragging this grotesque masquerade behind me. One morning, with the house eerily quiet and Alex already off to work, a wave of nausea crashed over me. In the mirror, above the cracked pedestal sink of our guest bathroom, I saw it. Not the lines of exhaustion or the telltale signs of my nightly adventures. I saw a ghost, a hollow-eyed shadow of the woman who used to sing in the shower, who laughed loud enough to fill the whole house. A sob tore through me, sharp and ugly. What the hell was I doing? What was I becoming? I was shattering, splintering into a million pieces. And the worst part? I didn't know if I could, or even wanted to, pick them back up. Mark. That was his name. It echoed in my head, a drumbeat to the wild thrumming in my veins. Mark. With his expensive suits and laugh that carried a hint of danger. He was the hurricane to Alex's gentle breeze. Our world was stolen hours, swanky hotel bars smelling of leather and expensive perfume, hasty whispers against crisp sheets. He was Wall Street deals and midnight cocktails, and who was I? Anymore? I craved that world. The world where I wasn't Alex's reliable wife or Max's doting mom. I was just desired. Wanted with an intensity that set my blood aflame. And yeah, I knew it was messed up. Mark's life was just as much a well-constructed facade as mine, I'm sure. But the lies, the secrets, they held a sick fascination. With him, I wasn't building something. I was burning everything down. It was glorious and terrifying all at once. With every illicit meeting, every whispered promise echoing against the sterile hotel walls, I drifted further away from home. Alex was becoming a vague memory, like a half-forgotten dream. Yet, I couldn't stop. I craved Mark, craved the feel of his hands on me, the heady mix of power and abandon he represented. Soon, he'd murmur the word against my skin, and I clung to it like a lifeline. Soon we'd be free, run away together, build a life outside of shadows. Yeah, right, even in my delusional state, I knew empty promises when I heard them. The guilt twisted inside me, a constant, aching reminder of the monster I was becoming. But even then, it was always drowned out by the rush of danger, the need for more. I wasn't just falling, I was leaping off the cliff of morality, eyes wide open, and the worst part? I was kind of enjoying the view. Mistake number one, thinking I was in control. That arrogance faded pretty quickly as a smear of crimson lipstick stared back at me from the bathroom mirror, the shade I wore on nights with Mark, not with Alex. A cold sweat broke out across my brow. I scrubbed frantically at the stain, heart pounding in my ears. Had Alex noticed? Was I about to be caught so stupidly? The cracks in my charade were widening. Alex wasn't an idiot. Hell, he was the furthest thing from it. He was kind, trusting, and I played those qualities like a fiddle for my own twisted symphony of lies. Now, a flicker of doubt lurked in his eyes, his smile a little less sure. I'd gone from actress to hunted animal, and the fear was eating me alive. My phone was the worst. It buzzed with each innocuous notification, making me jump like a spooked cat. A text from Mark, or worse, a text meant for him, sent to me by some vengeful twist of fate. My dreams were no sanctuary either. Alex stared at me, his face twisted, screaming accusations I'd only voiced in my own guilty nightmares. The weight of it all became a lead vest strapped to my soul. 3 years of deception. Mark, at first a whirlwind of excitement, now felt like a noose closing in with each sunrise. I was drowning in guilt, in paranoia, in a desperate longing for everything I'd so easily cast aside. Panic gnawed at me, relentless and vicious. It was only a matter of time before my lies were laid bare, before Alex looked at me and saw everything. I was falling apart, piece by piece. But the sickest part? A small voice in my head whispered, "You deserve this. Sarah. You okay?" Alex's voice, soft and filled with concern, jolted me into the present. He was standing in our bedroom doorway, brow furrowed. I must have looked completely unhinged. My breath hitched. This was it. The moment everything came crashing down. For a split second, a flicker of perverse relief ran through me. Maybe it was time. Maybe I couldn't keep carrying this poisonous secret anymore. I opened my mouth, but all that came out was a weak, pathetic, "Yeah, fine. Just tired." The lie, as always, came easy. The guilt, heavier than ever, did not. Okay, time for some truth bombs. I couldn't live with it anymore. The lies, the charade, they were choking me. So, sitting at our kitchen table, the one where I'd cooked countless dinners and shared so many laughs, I spilled it all. The words hung in the air, heavy and toxic. Mark, the hotel rooms, the promises. A grotesque tapestry of betrayal woven with my own trembling hands. I watched Alex's face, searching desperately for some sign that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Shock, disbelief. Then came the gut-wrenching pain. He looked broken. The man who'd always been my rock crumbled before my eyes, and the guilt was a tidal wave crashing against my soul. My apologies, my pathetic explanations, they crashed against him. Useless. He just sat there, a statue made of wounded flesh and bone. A scream bubbled up in my throat. I wanted him to rage, yell, throw something, anything to break this damning silence. But he didn't. Instead, that quiet voice, barely a whisper above the ticking of the clock, delivered the killing blow. I need time. And just like that, it was done. The life I'd so meticulously built around lies was gone. The warm, cozy kitchen transformed into a battlefield. I didn't know who the enemy was anymore. Mark, the me who had let this happen, or the twisted knot in my stomach that said I deserved every damn second of this. The rest of the night is a blur. I think I made some weak excuse about needing rest, about a headache. I locked myself in our bedroom, the very symbol of my betrayal, and wept. Ugly, snotty sobs that seemed to come from somewhere outside of my body. Sleep was a cruel joke. My dreams a horror show filled with Alex's stricken face and Mark's mocking laughter. Morning came, harsh and unforgiving. I half expected to find the house empty, Alex's things gone. But no, he was in the kitchen, back hunched, a stranger in his own home. We circled each other like wounded animals, unsure of how to even be in the same room anymore. The silence was suffocating. It was broken by a choked question. Alex's voice raw. How long? 3 years. It felt like a lifetime, and yet, a blink of an eye. Neither of us seemed to know what to do next, what to even say. The wreckage of our marriage lay between us, and I was terrified of where the pieces might fall. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of wind through the trees outside. It all sounded like a condemnation. The house wasn't our home anymore. It was a cage, saturated with the stink of my betrayal. Alex and I, we existed in the same space but on different planets. He drifted silently, a specter wearing a face I'd once loved like my own. The quiet was unbearable. 1,000 unspoken words hung between us. Should I beg for forgiveness? Should I try to explain the inexplicable? It all felt so pointless. Every day was a slow-motion car crash that I couldn't look away from. Each morning, I'd wake up with a flicker of desperate hope that it was all a nightmare, only to crash back into the brutal reality. I became a manic housewife. A spotless house, perfectly folded laundry, pathetic attempts to atone for my sins by achieving some semblance of domestic perfection. Alex barely noticed. If anything, the aroma of freshly baked bread in the air seemed to sicken him. Another bitter reminder of the lies I'd woven into the fabric of our lives. He retreated into himself, eyes hollow. The warmth in them was replaced by a cold fire. Was it hatred? Disgust? I deserved whatever he felt. Evenings were the worst, the silence stretched, our forced attempts at normal conversation crumbling into dust. My carefully crafted apologies felt like wasps in my throat. I couldn't spit them out, couldn't swallow them down. My world became a hamster wheel of guilt and despair. Calls from well-meaning friends went unanswered. Emails piled up at work. Dishes sat abandoned in the sink. I didn't recognize myself. The woman who had once laughed, who had plans and dreams, was gone. All that remained was a husk, animated by fear and remorse. One morning, how many had passed, I couldn't even say. I woke to find my side of the bed empty. A note sat on my pillow, Alex's handwriting stark against the crisp white paper. Staying with my brother for a while. Need space. And just like that, he was gone. Not with a scream, not with a fight, but the quiet devastation of a shattered glass left on the unforgiving tiles of our once perfect kitchen floor. The numbness I'd carefully cultivated shattered into icy rage. I'm leaving, Alex had announced, his tone so flat it made my skin crawl. It should have been earth-shattering, but some hollow part of me had already said goodbye months ago. He packed his suitcase with a terrifying efficiency, each folded shirt a slap in the face. I watched, a ghostly observer rather than a wife. I deserved this, the quiet, methodical dismantling of the life I'd ruined. My tears have long since dried up. All that was left was a brittle, cold anger. He turned at the door. I braced myself, expecting accusations, maybe a scream, anything to break this sterile scene. Instead, his voice was a monotone. Don't worry, you won't lose our home. It's already in your name. A parting gift, dripping with either contempt or pity. The door clicked shut, and with that pathetic sound, the dam inside me broke. It wasn't the wailing of before. This was a guttural, animal cry, filled with the self-loathing of someone whose punishment somehow still wasn't enough. Days bled into one another, empty rooms, lawyers' sterile voices droning about assets, paperwork that felt like a death certificate for a marriage I'd already murdered. Then came the final blow, a grotesque parting shot delivered not by Alex, but in the soul-crushing language of legal jargon. A clause, the seemingly innocuous detail, leapt off the page. The house, my only remaining tether to a past I'd tainted, was no longer mine. It had been sold, months ago, to Mark. The rage that had been simmering exploded into a white-hot fury. These vultures, circling my carcass, wouldn't get away with this. It was twisted, maybe even sick, but suddenly, I felt more alive than I had in months. Something snapped inside me. For too long, I'd taken it, the guilt, the shame, my silent collapse. Now, a different kind of darkness was rising. It wasn't about fixing what I'd broken. That ship had sailed, carrying a better version of myself I'd cast overboard. This wasn't about redemption. This was about revenge. I scanned the divorce decree one more time, then carefully placed it in a drawer. Alex and Mark thought they'd won. They thought I'd play the abandoned wife, licking my wounds in a sad, empty house. Well, they had another thing coming. Mark and Alex thought their little scheme would break me. Well, they were dead wrong. If betrayal fueled my initial collapse, a far darker, sharper emotion surged through me now. Defiance. I'd cried enough. It was time I made them pay. Sleepless nights were no longer spent wallowing. My overactive brain churned out elaborate plots, each imagined scenario more satisfying than the last. Crashing their smug housewarming party, a scandalous public reveal, fantasies fueled by rage-tainted daydreams. But vengeance, it turns out, needs an element of practicality, not just wish fulfillment. So, I took stock of my situation. They'd painted me as the careless, reckless one. The woman who'd shattered a perfectly good life in pursuit of thrills. Fine. If that's what they wanted, that's what they'd get. In spades. The transformation began. Gone was the hollow-eyed, heartbroken wife. In her place, I became a specter of my old self, but amplified. I traded quiet meals at home for raucous nights out. My closet exploded with clothes that screamed, "Notice me," and my bank account took a beating from frivolous purchases I'd have scoffed at a year ago. Each time Mark's number popped up on my phone, a thrill of cruel excitement ran through me. I'd play the wounded bird, let him coo words of fake sympathy, then laugh in his face. His panicked concern, the attempts to help me, it was delicious. They thought I was spiraling, but really, I was spiraling upward, building a character they wouldn't see coming. With a newfound clarity, I realized that the best revenge wouldn't be one dramatic act. It would be a slow burn, me as a constant irritant in their lives, a garish reminder of their mistakes. Each echo of laughter in the house he'd given me, each careless dollar spent, was a small act of defiance. Yes, I was broken, but hell, if I wasn't going to wield those shattered pieces as weapons. Let's be real here, forgiveness is for suckers. Alex and Mark wanted me to slink away, tail between my legs, the sad cliché of the cheated on woman. Oh hell no, not this time. If this divorce was a war, I was suddenly craving battle, and they'd made one fatal miscalculation. They'd forgotten I wasn't just some heartbroken housewife. The Sarah they used to know was dead. Long live the new me, a woman with nothing left to lose and a thirst for making them pay. And pay they would. My nights transformed from tear-soaked misery into something far more satisfying. I dug, nose deep in the muck of their lives, unearthing the grimy underbelly of legitimate businesses, the tax loopholes, and the shady characters they cozied up to. Remember that rush I used to get from sneaking around with Mark? That was nothing compared to the thrill of using those secrets, those weaknesses against them. A whispered rumor to a competitor here, a well-timed tip to the local paper there. Their tightly controlled world started to fray around the edges. Doubt and paranoia replaced smug confidence. Their attempts to hush me up with money, with threats masked as concern, only fueled my fire. Each anonymous tick to the IRS, each carefully orchestrated whisper campaign, became a victory. Their tidy narrative, where I was the crazy ex-wife, was cracking under the pressure. Sure, my own life might not be winning any awards, but watching them squirm like worms on a hook was a damn good consolation prize. And with each move, something twisted and exhilarating began to stir within me. Not the meek woman I'd once been, but something sharper, stronger. I, Sarah, the scorned wife, was becoming the monster they'd created. It wasn't about getting back together, or getting even. Now, it was about power. It was about showing them that